Intellectual disability is basically anatomically there is no challenges in the person,
Mhm.
but how do we term a person has intellectual disabilities is there is an impairment in communication,
Mhm.
impairment in understanding the social clues, and also cognitive impairments. So, if these three are prevalent in someone, so we term them as intellectual disabled.
Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you are new to our channel, please consider subscribing to it and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update. I am your host Ashutosh Garg, and I'm very privileged to welcome Amrita Roy Chowdhury from Calcutta to the show today. Amrita, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Amrita is a disability rights activist. She's a livelihood consultant and she's a social entrepreneur. So, tell me about the work you do, Amrita.
The work is basically, giving identity, dignified identity to the persons living with intellectual disabilities.
Mhm.
Because at one point of time, they tend to be, very a kind of non-reactive, non-responsive member of the society.
Mhm.
So my work began from there.
Mhm.
And also, in the broader goal is to prevent homelessness. For any kind of intellectual impairments, a person should not be homeless.
Mhm.
So, right from creating the identity through livelihood and retaining their rights in the community is what our work is.
Okay. And what motivated you to start working on these challenges in our society?
You can say it's basically it's first love, love at first sight,
Okay.
but there is nothing specific. But the innocence, the white and black world, there is nothing gray with them. That actually motivated me a lot, attracted me a lot to work
Hmm.
with this community.
Okay. And what are some of the challenges you have faced in building your organization? And if you can give me some examples, that would be wonderful.
First challenge is, in the disability fraternity, what we usually see, the
Hmm.
parents who have their children with disability, they usually come.
Mhm.
None of them who doesn't have any history of disabled people in their family, they usually don't come in this sector. So
Mhm.
my first challenge was, the acceptance in the fraternity
Mhm.
about why did you come, because you don't have anyone disabled in your family,
Mhm.
neither your children are disabled.
Mhm.
So why are you here to work for us?
Mhm.
That was very big challenge to gather the confidence that I work out of passion, not because it's a need. So that we it took time, but when we established ourselves, when we showed something that yes, this is the way that person can be retained in the community and they can be a part of other mainstream community also. So
Mhm.
gradually I and my organization was welcome enough, and we started pitching in very deeply within the community.
Fascinating. So, take me through the process. How do you select someone to get your support? And then what is the rehabilitation process?
Rehabilitation is basically through work. We all know when we sit idle, there
Mhm.
are a lot of things that which are not under our control. So called we are in the normative background, normative structure of the society, but people who already have some intellectual impairments, some other kind of challenges, they tend to more and more affected with sitting idle. So there are a lot of special schools you'll see, but one point of time you won't see a lot of special needs adult on road. So when we see so many patients on in hospital, so many children in the school, so what happened to them when they're young adults? So that was my biggest question, and I hunted that either they sit at home idly, and rehabilitation, medicines, therapy actually don't work.
Mm.
But if we set up the environment or platform where they can come and earn themselves financial independence, their own authority,
Mm.
this becomes very therapeutic. And whatever livelihood projects that we choose
Mm.
actually have a therapeutic benefits. Like if you talk about our bakery is cooking or baking is itself very therapeutic because the aroma, the texture,
Mm.
and food. Most of the people are very foodie,
Mm.
so they used to love it.
Mm.
Right now we are having a textile project which is also full of the sensory issues that they have
Mhm.
is with colors, the textures, the aroma, lot of water, which helps one to soothe down,
Mm.
not only with medicines or any therapy so called, because we don't see any 28-year-old guy is going to a therapy clinic,
Mm.
and which is actually not any advisable at that age.
Mm.
So the therapeutic work is transformed into the livelihood work. So that is how we design.
Okay. And can you give me some examples without giving names, of course, of how you got some people, helped them through rehabilitation, and what are they doing now?
Okay, so how we got is actually we collaborate with other parent skill training organizations. So there are a lot of parent support group. So we
Hmm.
connect with them, and from there are a lot of screening process.
Mhm.
Like there has to be self help skills has to be very much, they have to be independent. They need to have certain basic criterias, like they need to travel on their own. They
Mhm.
have to have this money concept. So these are the things that we take it as a baseline,
Okay.
and then we take them for work. So right now our bakery is closed down because of the lockdown,
Mhm.
but for the textile, we are having sustainable accessories and accessible accessories. So
Mhm.
they're well established in that. They come to the work, and since we are having lockdown, so the projects are being sent to their home. So
Mhm.
they're engaged in that, and gradually, I think in 2 or 3 months, we are hoping to full-fledged manufacturing unit of our own
Okay.
with all our people over there.
Amazing. Amazing. So, Amrita, you're also working in the area of visual rehabilitation. What are the challenges you face here, and how are you handling them?
Right now, though, I'm not practicing actually, but that was what I started with as my career.
Mhm.
Visual rehabilitation is basically when the anatomical part of an eye is okay,
Mhm.
but physiologically the eyes are not functioning. And the challenges in that field is mainstreaming the children in the school because of visual challenges. One child tends to lose the intellectual or the cognitive part,
Mhm.
and also the rat race, the bullying part, the kind of pressure, academic pressure that we see in the schools nowadays is very difficult for children.
Mhm.
So that's why there is a therapeutic rehabilitation management that we do in clinic and home.
Mhm.
But for last 5 years I'm totally into the social development sector.
Wonderful. And then, when I was reading about you, there's also talk about you're working on intellectual disabilities.
Yes.
Tell me, what is an intellectual disability and what are you doing here?
Intellectual disability is basically anatomically there is no challenges in the person,
Mhm.
but how do we term a person has intellectual disabilities is there is an impairment in communication,
Mhm.
impairment in understanding the social clues, and also cognitive impairments. So if these three are prevalent in someone, so we term them as intellectual disabled. And here we have three projects with them currently as an education program for the children,
Mhm.
the skill training program for the adults, and livelihood programs for their future part after they pass off the skill training center.
Okay, and can you help me understand the process that you follow in each of these three segments for children and for.
For children, it's early education program where also we keep the therapeutic management in mind,
Mhm.
but it's basically to focus on their skill development,
Mhm.
because over the time we have seen medicines and therapies are important, but at the same time it is very important to keep the
Mhm.
skilling part of the children in mind when they grow. As I said, that time therapies are actually of no use.
Mhm.
So that time they need to have a proper livelihood or proper engagement of the time.
Mhm.
So basically we focus on skilling part through different therapeutic management. We mostly focus on that.
Okay. And Amrita, when you are working with all these people, Uh, One of the aspects of rehabilitation, as I understand, is also to settle them down in a work environment where they're able to earn their livelihood. Um, do you work with a lot of companies?
We actually run social enterprises, so we are connected with a lot of e-portal sites.
Mm,
We have lot of local entrepreneurs who are helping us out, to have collaborative promotions, or maybe it's an exchange of programs that we do. So not big companies, but yes, as in very medium and small scale enterprises
mhm.
are we are in collaboration with.
And what is the feedback you get from the companies, the managements of companies, on an environment of inclusivity?
Inclusive is a very big term, that we need to practice.
Correct.
It doesn't happen overnight,
Mm,
because there are policies which actually mention about inclusivity,
mm,
but each one of us need to practice what inclusivity is,
mm,
what empathy is, because sometimes it happens that out of sympathy I want to help someone, but that might be very hurting to that person who wants to have a dignified life.
mm,
So this fine balance of empathy and sympathy is very important. Companies, I would say, they want to come,
mm,
but that bridging we need to have very strong how to do it. We all have a mindset to do something for the marginalized or the vulnerable group,
mm,
and especially in our country when there is marginalization is so huge, marginalized community.
mm,
So we need to build a very strong bridge how to go about it, how to do it. If I'm helping or lending my hand to help, it should be very dignified, not out of because I have a fund and I want to give,
mm,
not only because of that.
mm,
Responses are mixed, but mindset are changing. I'm very happy that young generations actually take it up in a very spiritful way.
mm. And since you just spoke about the young generation, I have seen millennials and Gen Zs tend to give back far more than
Yes.
the older people like me. What are your impressions?
Maybe there are mixed notions for experienced people. Like there are good organizations, there are not so good organizations. There are organizations who really work very deep in the community,
Mm,
and which is very difficult to reach out. But there are small organizations who are sustaining very difficult in a very difficult situation to prove them that
mm,
they want to work. So this balance is very difficult for the experienced people, whereas the young generation, they're very pro to not to think so much and
mm,
just dig into. They want not only monetarily, but they want to be a part of the change. So that is also very important, because our organization is a very voluntary driven
mm,
organization.
mm,
So a lot of young people, they do come because they want to do something, and
mm.
as I said, they don't know how to go about it. So
Okay,
this change I have seen a lot in this young generation.
fascinating. And one more question. There's a lot of talk about gender diversity in the corporate world, in the governments all over the world. I want to understand from you that in the area that you work in, are there any challenges of gender diversity also?
Of course, because the kind of intellectual impairments that we find is basically male born.
Okay.
Maybe females are not in a position to go out or taken out because of the societal challenges, the
Mhm.
transport, the accessibility, maybe because of that. So it's
Mhm.
a very male born, and our males are equally endangered in terms of abuse and exploitation.
I see.
So I would say, in if you say that the kind of disabled adults that we see is more in numbers of males. So there is a gender diversity at home. There is a gender diversity um, in every practices that we do.
Very interesting. So, Amitabh, I'm going to move to the next section, which is some questions for you personally. Um, my first question is that you are giving back so much to the community, to society. What would you say are three key milestones or key pivots in your life or your career?
First milestone is in 2010 when I got an offer in one of the government hospital here for joining in the neurodevelopment department.
Right.
From there, visual rehabilitation to working in the social development sector has been a huge journey for me.
Hmm.
Next is 2015 when I decided I'm going to leave my practice where I had a very lucrative career over there, but I want to do something which is more exciting, more deep rooted for
Mhm.
the development, for the sake of changing the society.
Mhm.
Third is being in 2018 when I started our first livelihood venture, Sip and Bite,
Hmm.
with 16 adults living with intellectual disabilities and their parents.
Hmm.
So, these three milestones I think has been a
Fantastic.
great impact.
Wonderful. And again, my next question is that what would you say are some of your core values?
First is leave and let leave. I think that's the first thing that I believe. But yes, again, it's more important for us to be empathetic. If we really want to bring a change, we need to inhibit this practice of empathy.
Very nice. My next question is, what does success mean to Amrita?
Maybe if I wouldn't have seen this COVID so closely
Mhm.
because of some my personal issues, I
Mhm.
would have defined success in a very different way.
Mhm.
But to me, till date, success is number of people, number of lives impacted, and how many people are having a peaceful sleep
Mhm.
because of our work, our organizational work. So I think that's what success means to me.
Okay. And a follow-up question to that is, who or what inspires you?
I think, the smile that I see in my team members, the immense confidence, they're always on their toes, is what motivates me a lot. They never say no. So
Mhm.
it's always a yes for them for anything. And of course, the team people that I work with, the
Right.
community that I work with is greatest inspiration for me when I see people having so much of challenges, but still they are living to the fullest. They know how to live. So I think that inspires me a lot.
Terrific. I've got time for two more questions for you. My next question is that if you, Amrita, were a role model to millions of children who closely followed you and your life choices, what is the one thing you would change in yourself?
I think it's again inhibiting the practice of some leisure work.
Uh-huh.
It's not only should we eat, sleep, work, or work, eat, sleep. There should be something a leisure habit that we need to incorporate,
And I
or
guess
maybe
that is,
I should.
and that I guess that is something, would be a message to everybody who's going to listen to our
Yes,
conversation, isn't it?
very important about our hobby skills, practicing that hobby skills,
Mm.
enhancing that skill, which
Mm.
is very important in our this new normal time.
Correct. Correct. Well said. And my last question to you is a question on failure. I've often said that parents in India don't teach children it's okay to fail.
Yes.
We're always told first in class, head of the line, etc. And that manifests itself in our behavior patterns. Yet we fail, we learn. So my question to you is, what have been some of your learnings from some of your mistakes?
Yeah, there have been a lot of mistakes while doing this journey. First is never give up. Every day you got to pick yourself up.
Hmm.
I remember a small incidents when we needed to find a chef for ourselves because we
Hmm.
had a very tight funding
Hmm.
budget. We needed a chef who can really help us without any money.
Hmm.
I knocked the door of 20 such chefs before we fix on our two chefs who actually helped us. So every day I used to be, I think I today it won't happen, but again next day I said no, I need to find out because I just can't leave it up. So first is this the patience, the immense patience and self motivation,
Hmm.
which is very important. And also personally, I feel a proper budgeting
Hmm.
or accounting, which I think which I have been a core science student. I never knew how to do a budget, how to do a write a report. These all were my learning.
Hmm.
So I feel these are few things which I've learned during my work, and life goes on, so every day is a learning for you. There is something to learn new in every day.
Wonderful. Amrita, thank you so much. It's been such a privilege speaking to you. Thank you for sharing such an amazing journey that you've had. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.